All right. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. This is going to be the third concurrent session of the day, Plagiarism in the Digital Era, Methods, Detections, and Prevention. Our presenter today is Laurie Slifka from Kaiser University. So Dr. Slifka earned their PhD from the University of Missouri at St. Louis. They're a they use neuropsychological tests and neuroimaging to examine brain integrity in individuals with health conditions that primarily impact the brain's subcortex. Their extensive research training greatly informs and enriches their teaching and mentoring practices. Now, if you have any questions at all during our presentation, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom room screen, and we'll make sure that we have time at the end of the talk to make sure we get through all of those questions. And on that note, I will go ahead and hand it off to our presenter today.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me move it over to screen share. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
We can hear you and we can see it now.
Oh, okay, great. So thank you all for coming. This is my second talk today, so excuse me if I mess with my words. I've been talking for a while. But this is very different from my first talk for anybody that was there. It was focused on neuroscience. Now we're switching over to teaching and learning. So we're going to be talking about plagiarism in the digital era, something I wish we didn't have to talk about, but unfortunately as educators, it's something that does come up. We're going to discuss methods, detection, and prevention. I hope you're ready because I'm hoping this will be an interactive session that you'll be using the chat to help me out. So you're just not listening to me talk the whole time. Just a little bit more of an introduction about myself. I can get my computer working. It's my family over to the right. I got my PhD with an emphasis in behavioral neuroscience. I was really deep in the research field and then found a love for teaching towards the end of grad school and kind of transition careers. I still do research. I'm really focused on teaching and learning. I'm a professor of psychology and recently was appointed the chair of teaching and learning at the Kaiser University Graduate School. So I run essentially our professional development there. I've been teaching online for about 5 years. So if you ever want to chat online teaching, happy to do so. In my last chat about behavioral neuroscience, I went into like specifically the research that I do, but I think for the people that may have come here, this audience, we're going to really focus on teaching. So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but essentially I study the brain, but now I'm studying scholarship of teaching and learning. So kind of all over the place. So as we begin our talk about plagiarism in the digital age, I want to start off by a video that I'm super hoping plays. And then I want to talk a little bit about the video. So just a little background of this video. My husband got this, you get like YouTube pop-ups, advertisements. My husband is not in higher education. He did work in AI for a bit. So this may have been why he was targeted, but one day he got this ad. And this was like the spark of this talk. It was so unbelievable to see this ad and for him to get it. And I'm thinking to myself, my students may be seeing things like that. You'll see what I mean in a second, but it was something that I didn't even know was out there. So this kind of piqued my interest in like what's going on with students and unfortunately how they're committing plagiarism now that we're like more so in the digital age, which we've been in a while, but AI is definitely advancing things. So I'm gonna switch over. And we're going to watch this video, and then I want to just hear your reaction to this video in the chat room.
Hey, Laurie, it looks like the audio isn't sharing. We do have the subtitles, but we can't hear the video.
Okay.
It might be if whenever you share with Zoom, if you stop the share and reshare in the bottom left when you're picking the window, there's an option to share sound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to check that to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, if I can't figure it out, what I'm going to do right now actually is I'm going to put this in the chat.
That's perfect.
For the link for everybody. We honestly use a different system at Kaiser. So while I do use Zoom, I'm not like, oh, I'm putting it in the chat for you. Do you mind sharing that with everybody?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We don't always use Zoom, so I'm not like the best with it, if I'm going to be completely honest, but I can walk you through this. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not
say,
exactly.
if whenever the pop-up window that'll appear whenever you click to share, in the bottom left there's a little checkbox that just says, I think, share sound. So if you're share, you should see that window.
Okay, we're gonna figure this out. No, possibly. I actually am not confident, but
no worries. It had subtitles. That's fine too. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. This is good to know for next time, but I can kind of walk you through it. And honestly, okay. So let's go back here. First of all, can you see the talk again?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I wonder if the subtitles can actually do it. Can get the point across. If not, basically what this is, kind of like scroll through the bottom, it'll help you write an essay. So you can type in a topic and it uses AI to essentially write an essay for you. So you can watch the video on your own. It's an advertisement for it. I am not, promoting this by any means. And honestly, I've used it to try it out and it's really bad. Like it does a lot of synonym replacement. But the fact that our students may be getting advertisements, like make sure you hit the deadline every time. They may be getting advertisements like this. See, they do like a synonym replacement for you. Is a problem. It was shocking to me that my husband got this ad, and like I said, this is what sparked the interest. So I know you weren't able to see the video, so we're not going to do the reaction thing, but I do encourage you to watch it, and so you can check it out for yourself. But when I first saw this, I decided to investigate even further. Like, are there other things out there that do this? And when you just Google, writing essays for me or writing papers, a million things come up. There's paid services, there's free services, there's ways that students can get around doing their own work. And I think it's just, unfortunately, getting worse. Now that they have access to more things, I have a lot of examples of things that have happened to me with students in the last couple of years that I'll share throughout this, but I just wanted to start this talk by making you aware. You probably already know, but just aware that these things are out there, so that you can be on the lookout for it. So in 2016, the Washington Post used an artificial intelligence reporter to write some 300 reports on the Rio Olympics. In 2017, the newspaper used it to write more than 850 other reports, which combined for more than 500,000 clicks. This is all from Turnitin in 2018. But essentially, if an AI writer is good enough to draft articles for a major newspaper, it's just a matter of time that students are able to use AI authors to help them complete assignments. The same way some turn in essay mills or ghost authors now. And basically what I showed you is that we're already there. So this was in 2018. And while I don't think the technology is great now, it's a little scary to think about what our students may have access to moving forward as technology improves. So this is just to give you something to think about, freak out about. But I do want to talk about plagiarism in the digital era in general. But I also want to provide you with some good news too. So I want to talk about plagiarism specifically. We know this is concerning. So there's things that we can do to combat the technology essentially, but we need to start from the ground up. So the first step in combating it is understanding it. So we're going to first start at a foundational level, like what is plagiarism? Why do students plagiarize? How do they do this? I showed you an example, but there are more. Why should we be concerned about this? Like if we're getting our paychecks, why does it matter? Well, it does, because we're all in education for a reason, right? We want our students to be successful. We want original work. We want them to learn. So why do we need to be concerned? How does this affect students? How does it affect our organization? How does it affect us? How can we go about methods of detecting it? Because students can get really creative, unfortunately. So particularly given how much new technology is out there, and often it can make it through like Turnitin and Safe Assign and stuff with going undetected because it's synonym replacement, what are some ways that we can kind of manually detect? And then, the most important aspect is how can we prevent this, aside from just telling students not to do it, which doesn't always work. And we're going to see why. They have a lot of motivation as to why they would do it. And then I want to provide you with some recommendations that I put together based on my personal experience and research studies. And throughout this, I want to hear from you. Every institution is very different. And everybody has different ways of handling it. And some of you may have really good ideas that can help all of us. So please do feel free to chat, and contribute to this. So we want to start off by the what, why, and how. Why? What is plagiarism? How do students plagiarize? And how do they do it? So what is plagiarism? It's a use of people's ideas or words without attribution. This is from the APA manual, but it's a practice of claiming credit for others' words, ideas, or concepts of others. And even if the plagiarism is unintentional, which I firmly believe, I want to say that most cases that I see with students, I believe are unintentional. I know graduate students, they're there because they want to be there. And so I don't believe that they're trying to do this, and often having a conversation with them can really help. But the problem is unintentional plagiarism, it's still plagiarism. So what I often, what I tell them is if you walk into a convenience store, you're buying a bunch of stuff, including like a candy bar, and you put the candy bar in your pocket because you can't hold it, and you get caught. I mean, the repercussions of that are still going to be the same as if you intended to steal that candy bar. So you really need to understand properly citing. We use APA in our program. And so, in their first course, we really try to drill in APA. And if you don't understand APA, we have a writing studio available. You're always welcome to talk to us about it. But at the beginning, it may be a bit of an excuse, but it's not an excuse at the end of the day as the program goes on. If you're not meaning to do it, but you do it, it's still a problem. And then the practice, self-plagiarism, which is a bit complicated, but it's essentially the practice of presenting your own previous work as if it were new. So taking like an old assignment you had in a class, copying it for a new assignment. So I'm hoping we can get a little bit of participation. So just thinking about it, why do students plagiarize? And I'll give you all a minute or so to just come up with some ideas on why you think that students plagiarize from your own experience.
And for everyone, the chat is disabled, but you can submit whatever you would like into the Q&A area, and we'll be
okay. Thank you very much. I am not the technology genius here, but hopefully people participate. If not, that's okay. You're not students. I'm not going to blank stare at you like I do to the answer. It's less time consuming. Okay, they're running out of time. Yes, you're often crunched for time. Simpler way of doing the assignment. They procrastinate, then panic. I hear you. So thank you for your participation. Oh, they're still going. They run out of time. They were never taught how. They don't know better. They want to get it over with. Yeah, for sure. All these reasons. And I'm sure in school we were all tempted at one time or another too. Like, we don't have time. We have other obligations. I have students that are working. I have a lot of adult returning learners, and they have a full-time job, and they have children, and COVID has been a problem, and everything else, and they just don't have time. Easier to complete the assignment, not enough time, don't understand directions, they're not confident. Yes, the number one reason I have is procrastination. So and this is all pulled from literature, but also personal observation. So our assignments for every class are always due Sunday night at midnight. I cannot tell you how many emails I get on Sunday nights, like asking about specific assignment instructions. I'm like, it's too late if you're just starting on Sunday. These are grad school assignments. They should be started earlier. But if you're getting all this pressure, it might be an issue. Pressure to pass the course. It could be very difficult, and they have pressure from their family, or they have pressure from themselves. Fear of failure. Our students are getting grad degrees and we don't have a stipend. They pay a lot of money to be here. And sometimes our classes are very difficult and they don't have the time, but they can't lose the money. Lack of organizational skills is absolutely can be a problem. I know that sometimes that's really hard for me too, to keep everything together, my family, my job, the house. And so it can, that goes with why you may procrastinate. There's this, everybody else is doing it. And I've seen groupthink in the classroom many times. One person starts something and then they all go from there. I've seen it in student reviews where they'll all write the exact same thing about me. I'm like, you guys all got together and did this. So they may think that everybody's doing it, so it's okay. And what I think is really interesting is there's assumption of not getting caught online. So especially in an online class that's asynchronous, it happens in like a synchronous environment too, but students may feel disconnected from the instructor. And this is kind of like interpreted as an attitude that they won't get caught. The instructor isn't actually there. They won't notice, they won't care. What we try to do, and we're going to talk about remedying this, but my students see me on camera every week. They can call me, they can text me, they know I'm a person. We meet with them during a week-long residency every year, but I try to like nail in them, like I am a person. Like I'm not just a robot that you're going to get things past. But I think this can definitely be an issue in an online environment where it doesn't feel as personal. So all of you are really spot on with your ideas. Still going with that. What the next slide, the theme, if I can get it to turn. These are within our control. The other ones, we can do some things about it, but they're not necessarily always within our control. If they don't understand plagiarism, that is something within our control to a certain extent. They have to be motivated to learn, obviously, but we can help them. We can set our programs up to teach them at the beginning. We cannot let them in an online class until they pass a plagiarism quiz. We can incorporate whatever different writing style you use in your classes into assignments. So they may not understand it. We need to help them understand it. The course may be too difficult. They might get frustrated, or maybe too easy and they're bored. They dislike it. We have unclear objectives. They don't get it. Responsibility, laziness. Yes, I mean, that happens too. But I think that can kind of, I like to think of students as like not being lazy if they want to be there. I think can be different in certain environments, like high school environment and stuff, but absolutely, laziness, not wanting to be there is a problem. We may have unclear objectives. So, sometimes when you don't understand something, especially if you're not comfortable addressing the professor, you just have to get through it. And so that could be a reason that they're scared to ask or they don't know what to ask. And then at the attitude and culture, it could be something that's common that in the community, in the media, and the parenting, we're seeing it in the media. I just showed you. The university department program maybe has a culture for not caring about plagiarism, not catching it. They know other students are doing it. These are all things besides the parenting, community, and media that we can try to help remedy to reduce plagiarism. So just to give you some tips on how to plagiarize. I always think this slide is weird. It's like, don't take these tips into account and do them, please. But the methods that students use to plagiarize, and I tell you this so that you are aware, AI software like EssayBot, which I kind of showed you, and you have access to the website, they copy and paste from the internet. I see this all the time. And they'll either put the incorrect citations or no citations, so they can't get caught. We have Safe Assign built into our class. Other people use Turnitin. All of those are supposed to help remedy this, but it's not, it's not perfect. Yes, we are going to talk about law a bit too, because it's a major issue. Christine, I'm really interested to hear more about the culture factoring in, and the acceptability in different cultures. I think we have some acceptability here in the United States, to be honest, but I try not to do that myself. I try to practice something different. But yeah, we copy and paste from the internet, so it's harder to find if they don't have the right citation. Digital paper mills, so buying pre-written papers, that's an issue. We've seen students that have uploaded old papers from our classes, and then people have resubmitted those same papers that they bought from a website. but and we have safe assign built in, so our system can catch it, but that's crazy. They copy previous students' work, write false information, and then cite a source. So they just make something up and cite a source and say they did it. It's kind of like the opposite of stealing intellectual property. Like I always address it to my students, like, if I'm working for years to do a research study, and you essentially, if you don't cite me or you cite me incorrectly, you're claiming it or saying somebody else did it, but you're not giving me credit for something that it's my property. It's my intellectual property. I spent years doing that. It'd be like someone coming up and stealing something from me. So issue, incorrect sources or using secondary sources. That's an example of most likely not understanding. Someone can act as a student in an online environment. Unfortunately, we've seen this. That's really, really hard to catch. We do have synchronous sessions once a week, but unfortunately, people can write papers for others or log on to the discussion. Mosaic plagiarism, which honestly is pretty repetitive to what I said above, but it's occurring when student borrows phrases from sources without using quotes or they may find synonyms in the author's language while keeping the same general structure and don't provide a citation. There's some old sources here, and I don't want to go into like each one of these specifically, but I think what the slide shows and what I'm trying to drive home is that it's definitely frequent. And what's so interesting about these numbers, they range from 7% to 66% of students self-reporting that they are committing plagiarism. I feel like as a student, if I was committing plagiarism, I would be like, yeah, I wouldn't be like, yeah, thanks for the survey, I cheated. So I think that these are underrepresented numbers. If probably more people are lying about it. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of diversity here, and there's a lot of breakdown of the numbers, but students have reported in one study, 80% of college students admitted to cheating at least once. In a Rutgers University study, this was back in the 90s, 66% of 16,000 students from 31 universities have cheated once. Another study from 2013, 40% used another author's ideas regularly without citing a source. So this definitely is an issue. It's not just isolated to my university or your university. So how does plagiarism impact the student and the organization? It impairs learning, first and foremost. What are we there to do? We're there to teach. And plagiarism, they're not generating new ideas. Sure, they can learn something if they're just citing, the unintentional thing. Maybe they're doing wrong citations, but for the most part, if they're going in and copying and pasting someone's work or buying an essay, like, why are you even there? We're in higher education. I always drill my students, you don't have to be here. Maybe there's certain instances where parents are making them or they need financial aid or something, but it's like, you don't have to be here. I'd rather you turn in something late or ask me for help or something than not learn. There's this cycle. Plagiarism in the classroom can lead to plagiarism in other settings. So it can lead to plagiarism at work, which could have really serious repercussions. It becomes a vicious cycle. So if you might have to continue to do it because you have to do it. So you didn't learn the material, and then you never, strengthened core writing skills, and you find yourself less prepared for higher level classes and subsequent assignments, and then you continue to plagiarize. There can be legal ramifications. So it's considered deceit and fraud, false designation of origin. And there's been cases where people have had, their degrees revoked, and there's been criminal charges against dissertation chairs and students because of cheating. There can be an injury to professors. Obviously, it can be a problem if you're not catching it and your students are doing it and publishing things with your name on it. The integrity of the degree decreases in value if things get out. So at the university I work for, if everybody's cheating and it's like a known thing, then you kind of lose the reputation of the school. Less people may be interested in the school. And then there's legal repercussions to the organization too. and you have to divert your resources. So I run the Teaching and Learning Center, and unfortunately we have had to do sessions that we don't want to require, but we've had to because professors aren't catching plagiarism. And so we could spend our time in professional development doing something else, but we're taking time to do training after training to make sure that this doesn't happen. So how do we determine if work is plagiarized? So I'd like to hear some ideas about how you determine if work is plagiarized. I'll give you a minute. And we'll change chat room to the Q&A. Yeah. Yeah, I will say that some students do have stronger skills in certain areas. You know, I teach all online, and I find that sometimes when I assign presentations instead of papers, students do wildly different on these assignments, which could be indicative of plagiarism, also different skills. So, but yes, it doesn't match their performance in a live class, or it doesn't match their performance from like one assignment to the next. I mean, you get to know your students' writing over time, right? Turn it in. Yes, so turn it in, safe to assign any of those are good starts, doesn't get everything. So Nick went on to say, assign tasks that are unique. Yep, absolutely. Find something that's unique. It's tough to find an essay online and pay someone to write it for sure if it's unique. I'm also gonna share with you some tips that I found for trying to reduce plagiarism, writing the classroom online, but actually writing and not typing. Wow, that's a really, really good idea, Christine. She's both in the classroom, she's gonna be writing. That's really good because online is really where you can get away with it, right? And it's so much easier to like copy and paste, but it's obviously not so easy if you're writing something out. So these are really good ways to detect it and things that I didn't think of. Okay, writing the same thing in the same, okay. Yeah, math is a little bit different. Yeah. Okay, great. Good, thank you for sharing. Let me go to my next slide. Okay. So, indicators. I have some students that are English as a second language, and so it can be sometimes difficult to determine if it's plagiarism or we expect them to write in English, even if English is second language. So it can be an issue with language. It also can be synonym replacement. But if something sounds really odd to you, like I've read things that like kind of make sense, but like not, that can be indicative of them using some sort of software and like having synonym replacements. The writing style changes. So this could be over the course of an assignment. We often see this in methods. So if they're writing like an intro, it may sound more like them, and then methods is like suddenly they're extremely good at research methods and results like extremely good at stats. Like it's like things don't line up. So it can be writing styles like within a document itself, or it can be writing styles across time. Citing at the end of a paragraph. So some students, I find that some students do this just because they don't understand that, like, if you're just citing purely at the end of the paragraph, you're citing the last sentence. But also sometimes they'll just like copy and paste from an entire source and then like plop a citation at the end of their paragraph. Use of we. I've noticed this one a lot. So if you read a peer review article, you often see like we found, and so they'll be like in a discussion post talking about, you know, something, I don't know, some research study on, what am I teaching right now, on the association between the hippocampus and memory, I don't know. And they'll say like, we found a significant interaction between this, and I'm like, we, who's we? You didn't find it. That's like a really clear one. Non-applicable terminology, that kind of goes with synonym replacement. Exactness of methods or statistics, like when they really get good And my students, a lot of them are learning methods and statistics for the first time. So like, I'm okay with the level that they're at learning it for the first time. But when they're throwing in really, really complex methods, like in my behavioral neuroscience class, when they're asked to like summarize peer review articles, and they're like doing this exactness of fMRI methods, it's like, something's not right here. Like, I don't expect you to understand all of it, but this doesn't sound right. So you can kind of get the idea of the change. This I see all the time in an online classroom, and students like don't think we notice. The font size changes. And in discussion in Blackboard, we see like a highlight, like a background highlight, and it's like, it's a pretty obvious indicator that something happened. Okay, so how do we detect it? Turn it in. That was brought up in the chat. Okay. So safe assign, turn it in, use any of those to detect. It doesn't always get everything, especially if there's like synonym replacement, which often you can tell, by yourself. If you are concerned, I think some students don't realize we have this superpower. I do love students. I love teaching so much. So like, I'm not being completely serious, but like, I think they're like, oh, like you got me. You can just copy and paste the segment into Google. That's what I do all the time if I think that something sounds a little fishy. Oh my goodness, Christine. Yes, you shouldn't even use Wikipedia to begin with, and then copying and pasting from Wikipedia is the worst. But I'm glad that they included the advertisements to give those people credit, But it's like, okay, don't use Wikipedia, and especially don't copy and paste from Wikipedia. I've had people copy and paste and like the hyperlinks will come in. So it'll like direct you straight to the source of where they copied and pasted it from. I'm like, oh, you made my job easier. And to be fair, I don't like catching plagiarism. It's a lot of steps. It's a lot of counseling to the student. It's a lot. But when you like put it right, like, in my face, you can review the original article that they cite if they cited the correct one. I often have to like go in and do this, especially if I see that their methods and statistics are like so specific, which I see because I teach one of the more like behavioral neuroscience in our program is like one of the classes that students get really worried about, and they may not understand everything. And I don't understand everything. These methods can be really tough. And so they resort to, copying and pasting, but going to the article can always be helpful, and you can ask them. We're going to go over ways that we can talk to them, but I'm not a big punisher, but I do stick with my students are there for an education for whatever reason they're doing it. I don't think they want to be doing what they're doing. I think they want the degree and to better themselves. Like they don't want, like they're not trying to totally like get away with it when they're balancing family and school and work. Like they don't have to be there. So talking to them about it can be effective too. Like, where did you get this information? Oh, Valerie, I don't have an answer for that. So safe assign, I think, can be really weird. So it can pick up like citations and stuff, and it can boost the percentage up. So I can have a student that like doesn't plagiarize anything, but all of the citations are caught because people have like cited those before in APA format, and it brings the percentage up. So I really look, if I see a high, like a percentage, like a high-ish percentage, anything that like kind of is above, 10%, 20%, if something flags, like I will look at it and I will compare, like, is this an assignment they previously submitted in a class? Because it'll tell me, if it's previous students' paper, or can you see direct paragraphs copied and pasted? Because safe assign isn't perfect. It'll pick up blurbs and it'll jump the percentage up. This is actually something that's come up a lot at our university, and our dean has asked, like, well, what percentage was it? And I'm like, it wasn't high, but there are 3 paragraphs that are literally stolen. It could be a 20-page paper, but they copied and pasted 3 paragraphs, so it's not a high percentage. So unfortunately, I don't have like a clear answer for you about that. I think it's just kind of using your own judgment to see the severity of it. But I think asking them, this seems really, really technical. This is really complex methodology. You know, can you explain to me where you got this information? And not in an accusatory way, but just ask them. Especially if you don't know where it came from, you don't know they plagiarized, you don't want to come in hot and be like, you cheated. Okay, so we need, in order, I think the best way that we don't have to deal with any of this is that we try to prevent it. It's not going to be 100% because a student will freak out on a Sunday night that they have not done their paper and they will resort to plagiarizing. But we can, as educators, try to do the best we can to teach them about plagiarism and show them that we are aware. Like, that culture of our university or college is we expect original work. It needs to be consistent. And, you know, just yourself in your classroom, you can train. So we must teach them. They lack knowledge. We need to teach them about plagiarism. They may not know. And so we can't expect them to automatically know things. We know that the educational system, you know, in the United States is so diverse and people get very different educations and they may have not been taught all this stuff. Yes, we know cheating is wrong, but as now the Q&A gone, I feel like it was Laura, Christine, that said that it can vary from cultures. Like, we need to take that into account and train them. Online tutorials and quizzes, there's so many available online. Once you turn it in, may help. In my classes, I put like an extra credit quiz, like read this tutorial, I'll give you a couple points, like nothing that's going to sway their grade. You know, students love extra credit, even if it's not going to switch them from an A to a B, it's something. And so it's like, one, it's showing them I'm taking this seriously. I'm aware that this is going on. I want you to learn. So take the quiz, you know. You can discuss it in class, you know, the first day of class. Provide examples of the policy violation and also provide examples of what plagiarism is. What plagiarism is it? A talk like this could be helpful. Make sure you provide easy access resources. I put APA here, but it doesn't have to be APA, whatever you use in the course room, or if it's a live class, which I haven't taught in so long, but actually give them information. Our campus has a writing studio that's really, really helpful with scholarly writing. And so I always recommend students to use the writing studio because it's something that's built into their tuition. So if you have that, definitely encourage it. And then policy, culture, and attitude. We need to offer punitive and supportive information for our students. So we need to teach them. We need to work under the assumption that they may lack knowledge in this, okay? So going straight to punishment is not the best thing that we can do for them. And oftentimes that just scares them away from education. So I like this quote, it's from 2008, but students will be less likely to gain material benefit from plagiarism if the online learning environment is robust and engaging, requires multiple types of thinking and deliverables, mixes individual and group work, and includes significant levels of interaction between students and instructors. I think that hits on a lot of points and something that was brought up before about assignments. We got to mix it up. We got to give them different opportunities to utilize and practice different skills. If we're just giving them writing assignment after writing assignment, they may be, you know, more motivated to plagiarize, and it may not be their total strength. Not all my students are the best at writing, but they're strong. You know, they learn other ways. So mixing it up, and if we increase our interaction, they're less likely to think that we're just like a robot behind the computer. You know, our culture is very different. I have a Google Voice number. My students can text me. They don't know my actual cell phone number, but they can text me. I'm there for them. They're not texting me, hey, what's up? How's your day? But if they have a quick question, I encourage it during normal, like, daytime hours that they can. I'm there for them. So how do we prevent it? In our classes, with our strategies and our range of deliverables, we want to emphasize learning over grades. I know that's really hard, especially if we have students that are so grade oriented, but we want you to be here to learn. With our graduate students, you're not going to get the job because you got straight A's. You're going to get the job because of the skills that you have. It is more important that you learn the information, even if that means submitting it a day late. I will work with you, but I want you to learn it. Emphasize synthesizing over just factual reporting. So Bloom's taxonomy can help there with actually them like more so explaining the ideas than just reporting facts. That's a little bit harder with math. Evaluating students' work from a variety of perspectives. So oral presentations, both individual and group, quizzes. You can have multiple iterations of quizzes, which is super important. You want them to be comprehensive versus factual. Group projects, they can complete a 360 evaluation. So evaluating each other, be for points, and then dividing assignments into components can be really helpful because you can give them feedback from a stepwise progression. And so it's not all like, oh, you plagiarize the whole thing, but you can like help them learn along the way. This goes with progressive assignments, which we're going to talk about next. So you can evaluate their work at different time points. You can return comments, change requests on drafts, and then track the responses and changes and ask follow-up questions. And so that way you're kind of getting ahead of it early too, and that they're able to divide it up so it's not such a daunting task. We do this all the time in our classes. But it gives them the opportunity to ask follow-up questions to us, and it increases the opportunity for us to note structural and stylistic changes in their work. We have a few more minutes. We want to require evidence of research and citations. We need to teach them how to do that. We want to be specific. How many citations do they need? You need 10 citations. You got to go to find 10 sources. Specific journals or research databases, that kind of like limits their like wide ability to go into Wikipedia. You know, if we give them specific sources that they can use, and it also allows us to check. We provide the materials for them, ask them what they did. So you could ask them to submit a supplemental paper explaining how they organized their search, where they identified their sources, how they integrated information, how they responded. This is really good for like an intro, beginning of undergrad, beginning of graduate school course. This is something I always have my doc students do, to generate a literature review prior to completing their dissertation publication. I think it's great for big papers too. Here's an example of a previous student when I was at WashU in St. Louis. Oops, hold on 1 second. Okay, so this is an example of what I call a literature review chart. It's different than an annotated bibliography. I don't love annotated bibliographies, but that's just me. They simply are going to write notes rather than copy. So they're forced to take their notes and summarize it. So this is an example of a student that I had that was writing a research paper. What are all of the studies that are serving as your background information for this study? What is the title? Who's the author? You probably want to, yeah, the year's in the front. Title, so summary, you have to put the year. The method they use, so here they're listing all of the neuropsychological tests that were used, the key points, that could be results or whatever, and any notes you need about it. And then they can take that table, the one that they generated, and use it to write up their introduction or whatnot. And you could review this first. And I actually think this makes writing so much easier too, because you have everything in one place. And in annotated bibliography, it's supposed to be a summary, but it can be copy and paste, and you're looking at a lot of words, a lot of paragraphs. This kind of breaks it up. So I really like this type of chart, but everybody's, you know, kind of different. I do think having them do something like this before just going in and writing is helpful. So I have 2 more minutes, so we're going to go a little quickly here. But it's really important that we're detecting plagiarism. If we fail to detect plagiarism or lightly punish offenders, that hurts their learning, risks demoralizing honest students, and may encourage further dishonest behavior at the university level and beyond. We need to make sure in terms of our policy that our policy, whatever the university is, it's consistent. We are implementing it consistently across the department. It's consistent with repercussions. Obviously, there's always going to be individual cases that we take into account, but for the most part, we want to try to stick to that policy. That way students know, whatever class they're in, this is going to be, you know, watched. We need to communicate that we understand that plagiarism happens. We need to talk to them about it. And the last thing is attitude. So we need to assure them they have time. Not everybody's doing it. We need a clear policy. We have to be consistent regarding ethical behavior. So the last thing I have is, how do you prevent plagiarism in your courses? And we'll give you like 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'll summarize. And we kind of already talked about this, but this is more like proactive methods. And I want you to share, because I think that we all could benefit from understanding what other people do. Okay, policy, and staying consistent to the policy as best as you can, I think, is important. If I have a new student that doesn't know APA, doesn't understand, I will talk to them about it instead of, but that's me. I will talk to them about it, maybe give them a warning instead of automatically giving them a 0 for the assignment. Handwritten written sample, if you're in the classroom, is really, really good. So you get an idea of their writing. Please keep talking in the chat just for the sake of time. I'm going to go to our next slide. In terms of a summary and recommendations, we have instructors, course managers, and then we have our institution. So course development, implement those progressive assignments, implement different kinds of assignments rather than writing. Be familiar with current technology for plagiarism so that can help you catch it. Be familiar with the student's writing level and skill level. Utilize plagiarism detection software, and then different teaching techniques that are evidence-based that can help. The institution should be aware, spread awareness among faculty and students. It could be in the form of, some teaching and learning seminar. Utilize plagiarism detection software. You can buy that as an institution. Make sure the policies stay consistent with emerging technology. So some of our policies may be a little outdated. What do we do if they use synonym replacement? Is that somewhere in the policy or does that not fit? We need fair and reasonable policies. So unintentional plagiarism the first time should not lead to being kicked out of the university. We have to first understand that sometimes they need help and then go from there. They should be fair and consistent and constantly evaluated. And then we need to create a culture and maintain a culture of ethical and moral values and not looking at our institutions as a business. Christine, we have several discussions about plagiarism throughout the semester. Show examples is perfect so they understand. Some students don't realize what's acceptable and what's not. They think that if you copy and paste but you provide a citation, you're giving credit. Fair. If you're a new student, they may have not learned that before. So I think, giving examples is really important, and coaching and talking to them about it instead of going straight to punishment. That's typically my style, but if students are continuously doing this and not utilizing the resources we give them, then there's a problem. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, the honor code's important. You can put it at the beginning of every class too. And, make sure that it's in there so that they understand. Then a policy too is going to be important. I see that your camera went on, so.
Oh, you're fine. We've got a few more questions coming in. You can answer those. We have a little buffer built in, so you're fine.
Okay, yeah. Self-plagiarism I think is weird. I never know. So I am not an expert on plagiarism. I'm here to share with you what I learned and what we do at our university. I think self-plagiarism is an issue absolutely when students are not learning. So if they have an assignment in one class, and so they say they have it in cognitive and affective behavior, and then they have a similar assignment in neuroscience, and they're taking their previously done work and putting it in, then they're not learning anything new because they're not, engaging in the new assignment. So I think it's a problem for that. I think if there's little excerpts sometimes from it, like a paragraph here and there, because they've already, restructured and cited the source, it's okay. But my biggest concern with self-plagiarism is that it all goes back to them not learning. So if I don't, they're not putting the effort in, they're just utilizing something that they've already done, then I see that as being an issue. That one's really sticky, actually. I really struggle with self-plagiarism. Thank you so much for the engagement, everybody. It makes it way better than just me talking.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you to everyone who has submitted questions. It's always love seeing that during presentations like this. So
yeah, well, thank you so much for your participation, Christine. You're awesome. If anyone ever wants to chat about ways that we can help our students, I don't know. I think you guys have my email address, but I'm going to put it here just in case. You can always reach out. It's great to get suggestions from people at other universities too. So, we can take that to our own, because we are not perfect. So thank you so much for your engagement. I'm happy to, answer any questions until I'm kicked out.
Well, on that note, I went ahead and I pasted your email in the chat for everyone, so everyone can see that, so they have access to that then. But looks like we're a little past it, but we're right at our time. So say a quick thank you to Laurie, and thank you to everyone who attended, and especially everyone who's participating. Always love seeing that. So the next concurrent sessions will begin right at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll be posting links in the chat in just 1 second to include the session meeting room links, as well as the links to the conference website, which will have a complete list of all the concurrent sessions and the descriptions for the rest of the day. While you are accessing the conference website, please do not forget to run by the exhibit hall, say hello to the entire Hawks team if you haven't already. You can view a quick 5-minute demonstration, and if you do that, you'll be entered to win either a 6-month subscription to Audible, a 1-year subscription to Disney Plus, or a $100 Amazon gift card. So if you haven't gone over there yet, really encourage you to. And on that note, I will see you all hopefully at the next sessions, and I'll post those links into the chat in just 1 second here.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.